The auction master held his hammer above the block. By order of the king, 10 breaths, princess. Choose one, the other dies. King Addis began the count, and the nobles joined him. At 7, the golden-haired prisoner pulled against his chains. At 4, the dark-haired man's ice-blue eyes found Delia's. At 1, her father smiled. Delia rose. Both. The hammer stopped, so did 300 voices. King Addis turned slowly in his chair. What did you say? For 23 years, Delia had avoided the royal auctions. That morning, Farana had taken her by the arm and said their father wanted to see whether his eldest daughter had finally grown strong. Delia felt the point of the silver fox brooch at her throat press into her palm. Her father had given it to her when she was 8, after they had nursed an injured fox back to health together. Back then, he had told her a ruler's first duty was mercy. The man watching her now had ordered 1 prisoner spared and the other killed for sport. She could not appeal to the father she remembered, not in this room. Not with Farana beside him, smiling as if she had arranged the entire scene for her own amusement. So Delia put on the face the palace servants called the Ice Princess. I said I will take both. A murmur moved through the auction hall. Farana leaned forward, her green eyes bright. 2 wolves for your first lesson? That sounds ambitious, sister. It sounded like concern. Farana could make a knife sound concerned. The golden-haired prisoner bared his teeth. Blood ran from one wrist where the iron had cut him. We are not your lesson, he said, and your kingdom will answer for every chain it has forged. The guards struck him across the mouth. The dark-haired man did not move. He remained on one knee, shoulders straight despite the weight of the collar at his throat. His gaze stayed on Delia, as though he were trying to decide what kind of enemy she was. King Addis pointed to him. That one is quieter. Keep him. Kill the other. A guard drew his sword. No, Delia's voice cracked through the hall before fear could close her throat. The sword stopped above the golden-haired man's neck. Her father stared at her. Delia tightened her hand around the fox until the pin bit skin. You have spent years calling me soft, she said. If I am to learn cruelty, why give me the easier task? 1 beast may submit by accident. 2 will prove whether I can truly break them. She made herself look at the prisoners as if they were property. It was the hardest thing she had ever done, unless, she added. You believe I am not capable of handling both. That did it. Her father's suspicion shifted into pride. There is my daughter, he said. The words landed like ash. He nodded to the auction master. Both wolves belonged to Princess Delia. The hammer fell. The hall erupted. Farana began to clap first. She always did know when a crowd needed permission. Well played, she murmured as Delia sat. For a moment, I almost believed you wanted to save them. Delia turned her head. Farana's smile did not change. Then she reached over and smoothed the silver fox at Delia's collar, gentle as a loving sister. Father is proud of you, she said. Do not ruin it. Below them, guards hauled both prisoners from the platform. The golden-haired one fought every step. The dark-haired one walked without resistance, but just before the doors closed behind him, his knees buckled. Only for a heartbeat. No one else seemed to notice. Delia did. The preparation chamber beneath the auction hall had no windows. Iron rings lined the walls. Water dripped somewhere in the dark, slow and steady, as if the room were keeping time. 4 guards held the golden-haired prisoner. 2 stood near the dark-haired man, though he had not moved since Delia entered. Up close, the fever in his eyes was impossible to miss. Sweat dampened the black hair at his temples. His breathing came too fast. An attendant bowed. Your Highness, shall we take them to the palace cells? No. The word came too quickly. Farana was not in the room yet, but her servants were everywhere. Delia forced herself to circle the prisoners as she had seen buyers circle horses. What is customary, she asked. The attendant relaxed. This was a question he understood. Starvation works well. The golden one will need it. The other may be ready for your chambers once the guards wash the blood off him. A few men laughed. Delia kept walking. The golden-haired prisoner lunged as she passed. Chains snapped tight. Come closer, he said. I would rather die with your throat in my teeth. His voice was rough, direct, alive with fury. The dark-haired man said nothing. He watched Delia through the fever, his face giving away less than a locked door. Then his balance shifted. The golden-haired man's anger vanished. Hector. The dark-haired prisoner ignored him. "Hector, look at me." A guard jerked the chain at Hector's collar. Hector took one step, reached for the wall, and missed. He hit the floor hard. The golden-haired man roared his name. Delia was beside Hector before she remembered she was supposed to hate him. His skin burned beneath her fingers. His pulse raced at his throat, then stumbled. "Get away from him," the golden-haired man shouted. "Do not touch my brother. Hold him still," a guard said. "The princess can do as she pleases." Delia looked up. The golden-haired man's wrists were bleeding now. He fought the 4 guards with enough force to drag one of them to a knee. She wanted to tell him the truth. "I am trying to keep him alive." Instead, she heard footsteps in the corridor and chose the lie that might save them. "Take Hector to my chambers," she said. "I want to know how long a wolf can endure pain before he begs." The room went quiet. The golden-haired man stopped fighting. His hatred found her with such force that Delia almost flinched. The door opened. Farana entered in crimson silk. "There you are," she said. "I wondered whether you had begun without me." Her gaze moved from Hector on the floor to Delia kneeling beside him, then to the blood on the golden-haired prisoner's chains. "This one is ill," Delia said. "I am taking him upstairs." "And the other?" "The cells." The golden-haired man strained forward again. "Hector." Farana studied him. "He has spirit. Perhaps I should borrow him." "No." Delia stood so quickly her skirt swept the basin from a stool. It struck the floor with a clang. Every face turned toward her. She lowered her voice. "I chose both. I will break both." Farana's eyes narrowed, then warmed. "Possessive already," she said. "How encouraging." She crossed to the golden-haired prisoner and caught his chin between 2 fingers. He went still, not from obedience, but because he was measuring the distance to her throat. "What is your name?" Farana asked. He smiled through the blood on his mouth. "Ajax. Remember it when your walls fall." Farana laughed. "Take Ajax to the cells," she told the guards. "Do not damage anything my sister may wish to use later." As they dragged him away, Ajax twisted to keep Hector in sight. "Stay alive," he called. "Do you hear me? Stay alive." Hector did not answer. Farana waited until the guards lifted him onto a stretcher. Then she stepped close enough for only Delia to hear. "If you are pretending, sister, pretend well. Father forgives weakness in no one now. Least of all you." Her fingers brushed the silver fox once more. "But if you truly mean to become like us," she whispered, "I will be so proud." Delia watched her leave and understood that she had not saved anyone yet. She had only moved the execution upstairs. The moment her chamber door closed, Delia dropped the act. "Put him by the fire, carefully." The guards looked surprised. She let her face harden again. "I said carefully. I do not want him dying before I decide what to do with him." When they were gone, she locked the door, pulled a chair beneath the latch, and knelt beside Hector. "You can stop pretending now," she whispered. "There is no audience." He did not move. His lips had begun to turn blue. Delia tore the silver fox brooch from her collar and used its pin to cut through the filthy bandage beneath his ribs. The cloth came away wet and black. The wound was small, no wider than 2 fingers, but the flesh around it was swollen and hot. A dark line ran outward beneath his skin. Poisoned Delia had seen it once in a hunting dog that swallowed bait meant for wolves. The animal had died before dawn. "No," she said, "not you." She heated water, cleaned the wound, and pressed a fresh cloth against it. Hector's body tightened, but he made no sound. "You should hate me," she told him as she worked. "That would be simpler." The fever gave no answer. Outside her door, the palace continued as if nothing had changed. Servants carried wine. Courtiers traded rumors. Somewhere below, Ajax sat in chains because Delia had failed to save both men at once. She changed the cloth again. Hours passed, the fire burned low. Once, when Hector shivered, Delia covered him with her own blanket. Once, when his breathing stopped for 2 terrible heartbeats, she pressed both hands to his chest and begged a stranger not to leave her. Near midnight, she found the silver fox lying beside the basin, stained with his blood. Her father had placed it in her palm 15 years ago and said, Mercy is not weakness, little fox. Mercy is power held in a steady hand. Delia looked toward the locked door. The king who had said those words no longer seemed to exist. But she did. She fastened the brooch to the edge of the blanket over Hector's heart. "I cannot save your brother from the cells tonight," she whispered. "But I will not let you die alone." His hand shot up and closed around her wrist. Delia gasped. Hector's eyes opened. The ice-blue focus she remembered from the auction was gone. Fever blurred it, but the force behind it remained. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was barely sound. Delia could have lied. She could have given him the cold answer the palace expected. Instead, she leaned closer. "My name is Delia. I am trying to keep you alive." His gaze moved over her face, searching. Then it dropped to the silver fox pinned above his heart. Something in him broke open. His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, enough to keep her there. "I know you," he whispered. Delia's breath caught. "No, we have never met." His thumb brushed once across the inside of her wrist, where her pulse beat against his skin. "I have," he said. "I have always known you." Then his eyes closed and his hand fell away. Delia remained beside him in the dying firelight, listening to the palace breathe around them. On the blanket between them, the silver fox wore a wolf's blood. Hector's pulse disappeared at dawn. Delia pressed 2 fingers to his throat and counted 1, 2, 3. There was nothing. At the 6th count, she reached for the bell rope. At the 7th, Hector's body jerked, and air tore back into his lungs. Delia let the rope fall. By the time his pulse returned, thin and uneven beneath her fingers, she had made the decision that could condemn them both. She needed Ajax out of the cells before sunset. Asking quietly would be a confession. The palace had hundreds of servants, and Farana had a use for every pair of ears, so Delia washed Hector's blood from the silver fox brooch, pinned it at her throat, and went to demand Ajax where the entire court could hear. If mercy would kill him, cruelty would have to save him. King Ajax was drinking wine with breakfast when Delia entered the small audience hall. Farana sat at his right in crimson silk, turning a jeweled knife between her fingers while a steward read petitions no one was listening to. Her father looked up first. "There she is," he said. "My new huntress. Did your quiet wolf survive the night?" Delia took her seat and reached for a cup she did not want. "He survived. That is the problem." Farana's knife stopped. "How disappointing," she said. "He fainted before I learned anything useful. A body on the floor cannot be taught obedience." King Addis laughed into his wine. Delia turned the cup once between her palms. "Send me the golden one." Silence spread outward from the royal table. Farana rested her chin on one hand. "You asked that he be taken to the cells. I changed my mind." "Why?" Delia made herself smile. "He promised to bite me. I dislike broken promises." Her father struck the table with delight. "Bring up the second wolf." 4 guards brought Ajax through the doors. Even chained at the wrists, ankles, and throat, he made the men around him look uncertain. His golden hair was dark with sweat. A bruise marked one side of his jaw, and fresh blood circled both wrists. He searched the room once, then he saw Delia. The hatred in his face needed no performance. "Where is he?" Ajax asked. A guard drove a fist into his ribs. Ajax bent, recovered, and looked at Delia again. "What did you do to my brother?" Farana smiled. "He has been asking that question all night." Delia wound the end of his chain around her hand. "Perhaps he will listen when I answer." She pulled him toward her. Ajax came because 3 guards forced him. But he kept his head high until they struck the backs of his knees. He landed in front of her chair. King Addis leaned closer. "Make him submit." Delia's heart beat hard enough to shake the silver fox at her throat. She looked down at Ajax. "Kiss me." His expression went still. Then he laughed once, without humor. "I would rather bite through my own tongue." The court laughed with him, though not for the same reason. Delia tightened the chain and leaned close enough that her hair hid her mouth. "Hector is alive," she whispered. "He will not be by nightfall. Give them what they want, and I can take you to him." Ajax stopped breathing. For one terrible moment she thought he would expose her. His gaze moved over her face. It dropped to the dark stain that had survived along one edge of the silver fox. "His blood?" he breathed. Yes. Something changed behind his eyes. Ajax rose just enough to close the distance between them. The kiss was not gentle, but it was careful. He gave the room a show of surrender while keeping his chained hands at his sides. His mouth touched hers for one charged heartbeat, then another. Delia had expected disgust. She had not expected warmth. When he drew back, the court erupted in applause. King Addis looked almost proud. Farana watched Delia instead. Very convincing, she murmured. Delia released the chain before anyone saw her fingers tremble. Take him to my chambers. Farana's green eyes narrowed. Already bored with the first, I intend to compare them. Of course you do. Farana reached across the table and touched the silver fox with one pale fingertip. You missed a spot. Delia did not look down at the blood. I left it. Farana's smile returned. Wear it then. It suits you. The guards delivered Ajax to Delia's chambers and chained him to the iron ring beside the door. The moment the latch closed behind them, Delia turned the key and pulled the chair beneath it. I am sorry, she said. For the chain, for what I said, for the kiss. I could not ask for you in private. Ajax stared at her. Where is Hector? Delia stepped aside. He saw the still figure beside the fire. Every trace of mockery vanished from him. Ajax crossed the room so fast the chain at his throat snapped taut. He caught it with one hand, braced a foot against the wall ring, and pulled. Metal screamed. The ring tore halfway out of the stone. Delia found the guard's key on the table and ran to him. Hold still. Unlock it. I am trying. Try faster. The lock opened. Ajax was on his knees beside Hector before the chain struck the floor. Brother. He pressed 2 fingers beneath Hector's jaw, then bent until his ear hovered over Hector's mouth. The breath he released shook. Still alive. Barely, Delia said. There is a wound beneath his ribs. I cleaned it, but the dark line keeps spreading. Ajax pulled back the blanket. His gaze caught on the silver fox brooch still pinned at Delia's throat. For the second time that morning, he went still. Where did you get that? My father gave it to me when I was a child. Why? Ajax looked at Hector, then back at the fox. Later. Show me the wound. Delia removed the brooch and used its pin to lift the edge of the bandage. Ajax smelled the blackened cloth. His face hardened. Nightshade. Can you cure it? I can keep the wound open and slow the poison. I cannot pull it out of his blood. Then what can a counter-tincture? Any trained alchemist will have one. Delia rose. The palace physician keeps a cabinet below the eastern tower. Ajax caught her wrist. And when the king's physician asks why his princess needs a wolf poison antidote, she stopped. He reports to Farana, Delia said. Then your sister will be here before the bottle is uncorked. Ajax looked down at Hector. How long? Delia asked. Until sunset, perhaps, less if his heart falters again. A knock struck the door. Delia and Ajax looked at each other. Your Highness, a maid called. We have come for the fire. Delia's blood went cold. They enter every morning, she whispered. If I send them away, Farana will hear of it. Ajax was already moving. He lifted Hector as if he weighed nothing and carried him behind the bed curtain. Delia pulled the coverlet down to hide the shape of his body. The knock came again. Princess? Ajax glanced around the chamber, then at Delia. What story do they expect? Heat rose into her face. They think I brought you here for my bed. His mouth curved despite everything. Can you look pleased about that? Can you stop enjoying this? No. The latch shifted beneath the pressure of the maid's hand. Ajax dropped to one knee at Delia's feet. Before she could protest, his hand circled her ankle through her skirt. He turned his face up to hers, all warmth and hungry attention, as if no other person existed in the room. Open the door, he murmured. You are impossible, and your heart is racing. Hector is dying. The humor left his eyes. Then make them believe us. Delia removed the chair and unlocked the door. 2 maids entered carrying wood and fresh linens. Both stopped. Ajax's thumb moved once against Delia's ankle. My lady, he said softly, you promised me water. Delia lifted her chin. Did I? I can be persuasive. One maid dropped a log. The younger woman beside her, a brown braid over one shoulder, stared at Ajax as if she had forgotten how doors worked. Delia let one hand settle in his golden hair. Later, she said. I have not decided whether I prefer you thirsty. The maids worked with astonishing speed. When they fled, Ajax sat back on his heels and grinned. You learn quickly. Delia snatched her ankle from his hand. Never speak of this again. I will treasure it in silence. Behind the curtain, Hector made a broken sound. The grin vanished. Ajax crossed to him. Delia looked toward the closed door. The maid with the braid is called Pell. She runs errands outside the palace for the kitchen. She also likes me. You noticed? Princess, everyone noticed. Ajax began cleaning the wound with swift, practiced hands. Offer her an hour with me. She brings the tincture from an alchemist beyond the south gate. No royal name, no palace seal. Delia stared at him. I will not trade you. You are not trading me. I am volunteering. She may expect more than conversation. Then she will receive less than expected, and a better story than she came with. Ajax. He looked at Hector. There is nothing I would not bargain for him. Nothing. Delia heard the truth beneath the lightness in his voice. No one owns you in this room, she said, not even for an hour. His eyes lifted to hers. For the first time, Ajax looked at her without hatred or humor. I am beginning to believe you, he said. Pell returned before noon to collect the linen she had forgotten. Delia gave her a purse, a folded paper with the name of the tincture, and a warning. Use no title. Speak my name to no one. Bring the bottle before sunset. Pell glanced at Ajax. And if I do? Ajax leaned against the wall with his arms folded. I owe you a song, he said. Pell's eyebrows rose. Only one? Bring the right bottle and I will consider an encore. She hid the paper in her sleeve and left smiling. The hours after that had teeth. Hector's fever climbed. Once, his back arched from the floor, and a growl tore from him, low enough to shake the water in the basin. Ajax held his shoulders while Delia forced drops between his teeth. At midday, the dark line reached his chest. At the 6th bell, his pulse began to skip. At the 7th, footsteps ran down the corridor. Pell slipped through the door with a small brown bottle hidden inside a loaf of bread. The alchemist asked questions, she said. I told him it was for rats. Ajax held the bottle to the light, smelled it, then nodded. You may have 2 songs. Pell looked at Delia. Can I choose them? Go, Delia said. The maid left laughing under her breath. They gave Hector the tincture 1 drop at a time. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then his body seized. Delia reached for him, but Ajax blocked her with one arm. Wait, he cannot breathe. Wait! Hector's heels struck the floor, his hands clenched. The silver collar at his throat rattled against the stone. Then he went still. Delia could hear only the fire. Ajax bent over him. One heartbeat passed, then another. Hector dragged in a breath. The dark line beneath his skin began, slowly, to recede. Ajax sat back and covered his face with both hands. Delia realized he was shaking. She lowered herself beside him. He will live? If the gods are tired of arguing with him. His laugh broke in the middle. Delia touched his shoulder. Ajax leaned into the contact before he seemed to realize what he was doing. They stayed beside Hector as daylight faded from the windows. At last, Ajax looked at the silver fox resting in Delia's palm. He has dreamed of one, he said. Delia turned. What, a silver fox? Since we were boys. It appears before battles, before deaths, before choices that change the road beneath us. That is impossible. Most important things are, until they happen. Delia closed her fingers around the brooch. Last night he looked at it and said he knew me. Ajax's gaze shifted to Hector. Then he will hate this. Hate what? Being right about something he spent years refusing to believe. Delia should have asked what he meant. Instead, she asked, why did you call him brother? You do not look alike. We are not brothers by blood. Ajax adjusted the blanket over Hector with a gentleness that did not match his size. He found me when I was 14, hungry enough to steal from a patrol camp. He could have had me whipped. He gave me his supper and told the guards I belonged with him. And you have stayed ever since. I will stay until one of us stops breathing. His voice softened. He carries more than any man should. Our people, our dead. Every wolf your king has put in chains. Ajax almost said something else. Delia heard the first sound of it. My pry. He stopped. Delia watched him. Your what? My problem, Ajax said. He's very much my problem. It was a poor lie, Delia let it stand. When he can walk, I will get you both out of the palace. Ajax looked at her as if she had spoken in another language. You would free us? Yes, after what your father has taught you we are. Delia looked down at the fox in her palm. My father once taught me something else. He said mercy was power held in a steady hand. I think he forgot. She fastened the brooch at her throat again. I have not. Ajax shifted closer. Most people know the right thing when they see it, he said. They simply wait for someone braver to do it first. I am not brave. You walked into a room full of people who wanted us dead and made them applaud while you saved us. His hand rose to her face. He paused before touching her, giving her time to move away. Delia did not. Ajax's thumb brushed her cheek. You have a terrible habit of saving men who do not deserve it, he murmured. Perhaps I am practicing. His smile was smaller now, stripped of performance. He leaned closer behind them. A voice scraped across the dark. Ajax. They froze. Hector's pale eyes were open. They moved from Ajax's hand on Delia's face to the space between their mouths. The fever was gone, the fury was not. Take your hand off her. Ajax took his hand from Delia's face. Hector tried to stand. The moment his weight touched the wounded side, his knees failed. Delia had one breath to choose between his pride and his life. She caught him. His body struck hers hard enough to drive them both against the bed. Heat poured through his shirt. One of his hands closed around her shoulder. The other braced beside her head. For a heartbeat, his face was inches from hers. Then he pushed himself away. Do not touch me. The words were cold. The hand still gripping her shoulder was not. Ajax rose slowly behind them. You were dead 10 minutes ago, he said. Perhaps save the royal outrage until you can stand without falling on the princess. Hector's ice-blue gaze cut to him. And perhaps you should remember why we are here. The warmth vanished from Ajax's face. Delia steadied Hector despite his protest and guided him back to the cushions beside the fire. You are here because my father put chains around your throats, she said. You can blame me for his blood if you need to, but do it after your wound closes. Hector looked down at the clean bandage beneath his ribs. His eyes moved to the empty tincture bottle, the bloodied cloths, and the basin Delia had filled so many times that her hands had gone raw. What do you want? He asked. At present, for you to stop tearing open the stitches. From us. Nothing. His mouth tightened. No one risks a royal execution for nothing. Ajax stepped between them. She risked it because I could not reach you. She lied to the king, bribed a maid, and sat here while you tried to die out of spite. I did not ask her to. You were unconscious. Your manners suffered, Ajax. One word. The room changed around it. Ajax lowered his head, not in fear, but in obedience so old it looked instinctive. Yes, Alpha. Delia heard the title and remembered the broken word Ajax had swallowed the night before. My pry, Hector was not merely a rebel soldier. He saw the realization in her face. Now you know enough to make us valuable, he said. I already knew you were valuable. You were alive. He almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Humans have sold wolves by weight for 20 years, and you expect me to believe life is suddenly sacred because you say so? Delia unclasped the silver fox brooch from her throat. She set it on the floor between them. My father gave me this when I was 8. We found a fox caught in a hunter's wire. He cut it free with his own hands and told me mercy was the first duty of anyone strong enough to offer it. Hector stared at the fox, the anger in his face faltered. I dreamed of that. Ajax went still. Delia did not move. You said you knew me. I was poisoned. You were certain. Fever makes fools of men. Ajax folded his arms. You have dreamed of a silver fox since we were boys. Unless fever traveled backward through 20 winters, I suggest a better lie. Hector's pale eyes flashed. Leave us. Delia thought he meant Ajax. Then Hector looked at her. Please. The word sounded unused. She picked up the brooch and went into the dressing room, closing the door until only a narrow line of firelight remained. She intended to give them privacy. Then Ajax spoke. You frightened her. Good. Fear may keep her alive from us, from the court, from her sister. From whatever game she thinks she can win by being kind in a house built on bones. She saved you, and you nearly kissed her. Silence. Delia pressed her back to the door. Ajax's voice lost its easy warmth. Is that what this is about? This is about discipline. Of course. You always sound most like an alpha when you are lying to yourself. A low growl rolled through the room. Ajax continued anyway. You felt something at the auction. I saw it. You saw her, and for the first time in your life you looked afraid. Enough. Then tell me I imagined it. The fire cracked when Hector answered. His voice was quiet. We came into this kingdom for our people. Do not forget them, because one human woman has gentle hands. I have forgotten nothing. Then keep your hands to yourself. Another silence. Yes, Alpha, Ajax said. This time the title sounded like a wound. Delia moved away from the door before either man could hear her breathing. For the next 3 days, Hector healed, and the room grew smaller. Ajax filled silence as if it offended him. He sang under his breath while cleaning weapons they did not have, flirted with Pell through the locked door, and told Delia increasingly impossible stories about Hector's youth. According to Ajax, Hector had once challenged a bear because it stole his breakfast. I was 12, Hector said from the chair by the fire. And the bear was 6 times your size. It was a small bear. It had your breakfast. That was the issue. Delia laughed before she could stop herself. Hector looked at her. The smile disappeared from her mouth, but not from whatever had opened behind her ribs. His gaze dropped to the silver fox at her throat. Then he looked away. At night, the tension sharpened. Delia woke before dawn with a dry throat and crossed the chamber in her nightdress. Ajax slept near the door, one arm over his face. Hector's place beside the fire was empty. She reached for the water jug. A hand closed around her wrist. Hector turned her against the wall without a sound. He had recovered enough strength to make the movement effortless. His body blocked the moonlight, one hand beside her head, the other circling her wrist without pain. No audience, he said. No guards, no sister listening at the door. Tell me the truth. I have told you. Why us? Because letting you die would have been wrong. That answer belongs in a prayer. I asked what belongs to you. Delia lifted her chin. I watched people sold in my father's name for years. I looked away because looking was safer. At the auction, there was nowhere left to look. Hector's grip loosened. So this is guilt at first. And now she could feel his breath against her mouth. The silver fox lay between them, pinned at her throat. Hector's eyes dropped to it. His fingers rose and touched one pointed ear. A strange warmth moved through the metal. Delia felt an emotion that was not hers, want, held so tightly it had become anger. Hector's thumb left the brooch and brushed her lower lip. His face changed the instant he touched her, as though the contact had answered a question he did not want answered. He leaned closer. Delia closed her eyes. Hector stepped back so quickly that cold air rushed between them. Stay away from Ajax. Her eyes opened. Why? He trusts too easily. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting. You do not command me. His pale eyes flashed. No, he said. That is the problem. He returned to the fire and lay down with his back to her. Delia remained against the wall, one hand pressed over the fox. Feeling the last of his anger fade from her chest, by morning she had a plan. The collars are the only reason you cannot shift, she said. Ajax touched the silver band at his throat. They also ruin every shirt. Hector ignored him. The key will be on your father's body or his belt. His belt, Delia said. Second ring, left side. He never removes it. Then you need to get close enough to steal from a king who no longer trusts you. He has never trusted me less than he does now. A jeweled knife struck the outside of the chamber door. Its point drove through the wood. Farana's voice followed. Open the door, sister. We need to discuss your maid. Pell. Delia looked at Ajax. For once he had no joke. She hid Hector behind the bed curtain, fastened Ajax's loose chain to the wall ring, and opened the door. Farana entered without waiting for an invitation. She wore white that morning. The jeweled knife was back in her hand, though Delia had not seen her pull it from the door. A kitchen maid visits an alchemist, Farana said. She buys a counter-tincture for nightshade. On the same day, your wolf stops looking half dead. Delia made herself close the door. Do you have the palace watching every loaf of bread? Only the loaves that enter my sister's room. Farana walked to Ajax. He remained seated against the wall, golden hair loose around his shoulders, expression lazy. Her knife traced the chain from the ring to his collar. Did she save you? Ajax smiled. She exhausts me. It can resemble illness from a distance. Farana's gaze sharpened. Then she laughed. You are wasted on Delia. I have survived the disappointment. Farana turned to her sister. The court is whispering that you have gone soft. Father hears whispers as treason now. I will not let them use your weakness against you. There was something almost fierce beneath the words. Farana believed she was protecting her. That made the knife harder to see. What do you want me to do? Delia asked. Tonight you will bring both wolves to dinner. You will let the court see what they are to you. Hector can barely stand. Farana's green eyes settled on the bed curtain. Then he had better learn. Delia's pulse stumbled. Her sister smiled as though she had noticed nothing. Wear the fox, she said. Father likes it when you remember who gave you pretty things. When the door closed, Hector stepped from behind the curtain. Ajax watched it for another moment. Your sister has no scent. Delia frowned. She wears rose oil. I smell the oil. I do not smell her. Hector looked toward the door. Later, tonight comes first. Delia touched the fox at her throat. Tonight I take the key. The royal hall was full before the first bell. Delia entered with one chain in each hand. Ajax walked at her left, golden head lowered just enough to look obedient. Hector walked at her right, pale eyes fixed ahead. The silver collar circled his throat. The bandage beneath his black shirt was invisible. At the foot of the dais, Ajax went to one knee without being told. Hector remained standing. The court noticed. Delia felt 300 people waiting for her to fail. She tightened his chain. Kneel. Hector looked at her. For one dangerous beat, the wolf in him answered before the man. Then he lowered himself slowly, not like a slave, like a king choosing the height from which he would strike. King Addis raised his cup. My daughter has teeth at last. The court drank. Delia took the seat at her father's left. Ajax settled beside her chair. Hector knelt on her other side, close enough that his shoulder touched her knee. Farana sat across from them, turning her knife between her fingers. Show us what you have taught him, she said. Delia placed her hand in Hector's dark hair. His body went still. She drew her fingers through the strands at his nape, slowly enough for the court to understand the performance. Only she felt the breath he held. Only she felt the answering heat move through the silver fox. Her father laughed. The quiet one has learned his place. Hector's chained hand settled against Delia's ankle beneath the table. His thumb pressed once against her pulse. Has he? Farana asked. She crossed behind Delia's chair and stopped beside Ajax. And what did the Golden One learn from little Pell? Ajax looked up at her with an easy smile. That palace maids lie about knowing every song. Farana touched his jaw with the flat of her knife. Perhaps I should test what else she lied about, whenever the princess permits it. Delia heard the warning beneath his charm. Farana did not, or pretended not to. King Addis lifted his cup again, then stopped. His eyes lost focus. The hand holding the wine remained suspended between table and mouth. His lips moved around a word no one else seemed to hear. Delia knew these spells. They had begun years ago as moments of distraction. Now entire conversations vanished from him. Father? He turned toward her, but his gaze passed through her face. The fox, he whispered. Delia's hand rose to the brooch. What about it? His expression twisted with sudden grief. I opened the wire. For one heartbeat, her father was there, the man who had carried an injured animal home inside his cloak. Then his eyes emptied again. Hector shifted beside him. His shoulder struck the king's chair. Addis turned toward the sound. Now, Delia reached for the wine pitcher with one hand. With the other, hidden by the fall of her sleeve, she found the second iron ring on her father's belt. The key was colder than she expected. It caught once. Farana's knife stopped turning. Delia poured. Hector's fingers closed around her ankle. She pulled again. The key came free. Delia hid it behind the silver fox, sliding the narrow iron beneath the brooch's clasp. King Addis blinked and looked down at the fresh wine in his cup. "Did I ask for that?" "You did, father." He studied her face. For a moment, she thought he remembered everything. Then he smiled. "You were always the gentle one." Across the table, Farana's green eyes narrowed. Delia rose before her knees could fail. "My pets have tired me." The court laughed. She led Ajax and Hector out with the chains wound around her hands and the key pressing against her heart. They did not speak until the chamber door was barred. Delia tore the silver fox from her throat. The key fell into her palm. Ajax exhaled. "I take back every unkind thought I had about royal jewelry." She unlocked his collar first. The silver band opened with a soft click. Ajax staggered as power returned to him. Gold flashed through his eyes. His nails darkened to claws, then became human again. "Gods," he whispered, "I can breathe." Delia turned to Hector. He stood motionless while she placed the key in his lock. Her fingers brushed the warm skin beneath the collar. The fox lay open in her other palm. "When this comes off," she said, "you can leave. We can. There is a passage behind my father's library. It ends beyond the inner wall, near the old orchard. I can take you there before dawn." The lock opened. The collar struck the floor. Hector's breath broke. For an instant, his eyes were no longer a man's. The wolf looked out through winter blue fire. He caught Delia's hand before she could step away. "Come with us." She shook her head. "I cannot abandon the people my father will punish in my place. Then I will return for you." "No, once you leave, you cannot come back. Promise me." Hector closed her fingers around the silver fox. His hand covered hers. "That is not a promise I will make." The library door opened as Delia pressed the hidden latch. She had one heartbeat to hide two uncollared wolves. Hector caught the edge of the moving wall and pulled her into darkness. Ajax slipped through after them. The stone panel closed just as a woman's footsteps crossed the library carpet. "Delia?" Farana called from the other side. Delia held her breath. The silver fox brooch was trapped between her palm and Hector's chest. Its pin bit her skin. His hand covered hers, stilling it before the metal could scrape stone. Farana came closer. "Sister, I know you are frightened. Open the door before father discovers what you stole." Ajax's eyes flashed gold in the dark. Hector shook his head once. No answer. For several breaths, no one moved. Then Farana laughed softly. "All right," she said. "Let us see where kindness takes you." Her footsteps withdrew. Delia waited until the sound vanished before she let air back into her lungs. "She knows," Ajax whispered. "She suspects." Delia said. Hector released her hand. "There is no difference now. Move." The passage dropped beneath the palace in a steep run of wet stone steps. Delia led with one hand against the wall. Ajax followed behind her while Hector walked last, listening for pursuit. Her father had shown her the tunnel when she was 9. He had carried a lantern in one hand and her shoes in the other because she had insisted secret passages should be explored barefoot. At the bottom, he had made her swear never to tell anyone. She had kept that promise for 14 years. Now she was using his secret to free the men sent to destroy him. The thought stopped her halfway down. Hector nearly walked into her. "What is it?" "Nothing. That word has never meant nothing when you say it." Delia looked over her shoulder. In the narrow dark, his pale eyes held what little light there was. "When we reach the orchard, you run north. The old road crosses the river 3 miles beyond the wall. Patrols change at dawn. You will have less than an hour. Come with us. No, you have already been discovered, not proven." Ajax leaned one shoulder against the wall. "Princess, your sister just spoke to a closed bookcase as if it had betrayed her personally. I fear proof is no longer the difficulty." Delia kept descending. "If I vanish, father will punish servants who knew nothing. Pell, my maids, the guards outside my rooms. Anyone he can reach? And if you stay?" Hector asked. "He punishes me. You say that as though it is better." "It is smaller." Hector caught her elbow. "Your life is not a smaller thing." The force behind the words moved through her before she could defend against it. Fear. His fear, not hers. It struck the same place in her chest that had opened when he touched the silver fox. Delia pulled her arm free. "You do not get to tell me what my life is worth. after spending days pretending I mean nothing to you." Ajax looked up at the ceiling as if asking the stones for patience. Hector's jaw tightened. "This is not the place. It never is with you." She turned and continued down. They reached the last door as the first gray light entered through its cracks. Delia pushed. Cold air rushed over them. The hatch opened beneath the oldest apple tree in the royal orchard, beyond the inner wall but still inside the hunting grounds. Frost silvered the grass. Bare branches reached across the pale sky. Ajax climbed out and stretched, as though the world itself had been too small until that moment. His shoulders shifted. For one breath, gold fur rippled beneath his skin before he forced the change back. "I had forgotten what air tastes like without iron in it," he said. Hector came out behind him and scanned the tree line. Delia heard nothing. Hector heard something. His head turned north. A bird called once from the woods. Ajax answered with a low whistle. Delia looked between them. "You have friends nearby. We hope to," Ajax said, not a lie, not the truth either. Hector faced her. "Last chance. Do not ask again." "Delia," I said no. The word hurt him. She felt that too. Hector looked at the fox in her hand. He folded her fingers over it and closed both his hands around hers. "If fear reaches you," he said, "do not fight it. Let me feel it. Why would you feel anything that belongs to me?" His eyes lifted to hers. For one moment she thought he would finally answer. Then Ajax stepped closer. "Because he is difficult," he said. "It is a chronic condition." Hector gave him a look sharp enough to strip bark. Ajax ignored it and turned to Delia. The humor left his face. "You gave us our lives. You saved Hector. After you saved him first." He touched her cheek with the back of 2 fingers. "There are not many people like you in any kingdom." Delia's throat tightened. "There should be. Perhaps there will be if you live long enough to embarrass them into it." She laughed once, and the laugh broke. Ajax drew her against him. His embrace was warm, careful, and brief enough to ask permission. Delia held on. When he pulled back, he searched her face. She knew what he was asking before he moved. This kiss was nothing like the one before the court. There was no chain between them, no audience, no lie they needed to sell. Ajax kissed her slowly, with one hand at her jaw and the other resting at her waist. Delia closed her eyes and let herself answer. Pain tore through the open place in her chest, not pain of the body, jealousy, hurt. A rage so controlled it had become cold. Delia broke the kiss and turned. Hector stood beneath the apple tree, his face unreadable. Only his fists betrayed him. The emotion inside her belonged to him. He knew she had felt it. His gaze dropped to the fox pressed against her heart. "Ajax," he said, too calm. Ajax stepped away from Delia. "Yes, Alpha, we leave now." Delia waited for Hector to look at her again. He did not. Ajax gave her one last, crooked smile. "Try not to rescue any more impossible men before breakfast." Then he followed Hector into the trees. They disappeared without a sound. Delia stood alone beneath the branches until the cold reached her bones. She returned through the tunnel before sunrise. Farana was gone from the library. No guards waited behind the panel. The palace remained quiet enough that Delia almost believed she had escaped discovery. She crossed the corridor toward her chambers. The alarm horn sounded. A single note rolled through the palace. Then another answered from the southern wall. Someone screamed below. Delia ran. The first body lay at the head of the servants' stairs, a guard with his sword still in its sheath. The second was a wolf in human form, blood dark across his shoulder, trying to drag himself toward the window. The palace shook with the clash of steel. Delia reached the landing and saw the courtyard. Wolves poured through the inner grounds. Some ran on 4 legs, gray and black shapes, moving faster than horses. Others fought as men, eyes lit from within. The gates were still barred. They had not come through the gates. Delia looked toward the library wing. The passage, her knees nearly failed. A maid collided with her. Pell's braid had come loose, and blood streaked one sleeve. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" "Not mine. They are in the kitchens. Some are letting servants go. But one of them killed Master Oren when he reached for a poker." A crash sounded below. Delia seized Pell's hand. "Take everyone you can find to the West Chapel. The doors bar from inside. Use the priest's stare, not the gallery. What about you? I am going to my father. Pell's fingers tightened. Princess, no. Go. Delia pushed the silver fox into Pell's palm. Keep this until the chapel is locked. If anyone stops you, say it carries my authority. Pell stared at the brooch. And if they do not care about your authority, stab them with the pin. That earned the ghost of a smile. Pell ran. Delia took the eastern corridor toward the throne wing. The long gallery was full of smoke. A tapestry burned at one end, turning the painted kings on the wall into black shapes behind heat. She stepped around a fallen spear. Something moved behind her. A hand closed in her hair and dragged her backward. Delia struck the floor hard enough to lose breath. A man crouched over her. His face was human, but his eyes were amber and his teeth had begun to lengthen. Little Royal, he said. Do you know what your father did to my sister? Delia reached for the spear. He kicked it away. I did not order it. You ate at his table. His fist tightened in her hair, drawing her throat bare. Vakran. The name came from the end of the gallery. The man above her froze. Hector walked through the smoke. He wore no armor. Blood marked one side of his face, and his pale eyes burned with the wolf behind them. Vakran released Delia and rose. Alpha. I did not know she was. Hector crossed the distance before he finished. He struck Vakran against the wall with one hand at his throat. Stone cracked behind the man's shoulders. Look at her, Hector said. Vakran's feet barely touched the floor. My sister died in their cells, and Delia opened ours. She is Attis's blood. She is under my protection. The words carried beyond the gallery. Wolves at both ends stopped moving. Hector's voice lowered. Anyone who harms her answers to me. Anyone who frightens her answers to me. Anyone who uses her father's crimes as permission to become him answers to me. Vakran's anger broke before his obedience did. Hector let him fall. On your knees. Vakran knelt. Forgive me, Alpha. Ask her. The man looked at Delia. Shame and hatred fought across his face. Forgive me, princess. Delia pushed herself upright. Find the servants in the west chapel. Guard the doors. No wolf enters without my word. Vakran looked to Hector. You heard her, Hector said. Vakran bowed his head and ran. Hector dropped beside Delia. His hands hovered near her shoulders, waiting. Where are you hurt? You came back. Where my head? It is nothing. It is not nothing. His fingers touched the torn place at her scalp with a care that made her vision blur. I felt your fear, he said. It struck before the horn. You were already coming. Hector went still. Delia looked past him at the wolves moving through the palace. You were already inside. He did not answer. The silence was enough. My father, she said. Hector caught her arm as she stood. Delia, take me to him. You should not see. Take me to him. This time he obeyed. The lower council chamber had become a war room. Wolf captains stood around the long table. Human guards knelt along one wall with their weapons piled beyond reach. Ajax waited near the door, golden hair tied back, blood on both hands that did not appear to be his. He saw Delia and crossed to her. Sweetheart. She stepped away from him. Ajax stopped. At the center of the room, King Attis sat bound to a chair. His crown lay on the table. Without it, he looked smaller, older. His beard was wet with wine or blood. His eyes stared at a place no one else could see. Father Delia ran to him. She knelt and took his face between her hands. Look at me. His gaze moved across her without recognition. Father, it is Delia. His lips shaped a word. She leaned close. Green, he whispered, the eyes in the dark. A man stepped behind the chair. He was taller than Hector, his dark hair threaded with silver, his face cut by the same hard lines. Pale eyes settled on Delia, then on the bare place at her throat where the silver fox had been. The wolves in the room lowered their heads. The Alpha King, Hector's father, he looked at Attis. 20 years ago, you called me brother. Attis did not move. You stood beside me against the southern clans. You held my son when he was named. Then you closed your gates, took my people in chains, and signed 7,000 deaths with the same hand that once clasped mine. The Alpha King's voice roughened. Tell me why. Attis stared through him. Father, Delia begged. Please, say something. His eyes shifted to her hair. For one heartbeat, they cleared. "Little fox," he whispered. Delia broke. "I am here." His bound hand strained toward her. "Open the wire." Then the emptiness returned. The Alpha King drew his sword. Delia stood between them. "No. Move, child. He cannot defend himself. Neither could the children taken from my villages. Something is wrong with him. Something has been wrong for 20 years. The graves remain." Delia looked at Hector. He had faced armed men without fear. Now he could not meet her eyes. "Stop him," she said. Hector's throat moved. "Delia, stop him." The Alpha King lifted the blade. Ajax caught Delia from behind as she lunged. "Close your eyes," he whispered. She did not. The sword fell once. Ajax turned her face into his shoulder before she saw the end of it. The sound was smaller than her grief. Her knees gave way. Ajax held her as she wept for the cruel king on the floor and the gentle father who had disappeared years before. No one spoke until the Alpha King wiped his sword. Then one of the captains entered from the passage door. "The inner keep is secured, sire." Prince Hector's route was exact. The orchard tunnel brought our vanguard beneath the wall before the alarm. Delia stopped crying. The room went silent. She lifted her head from Ajax's shoulder. Hector looked as if the sword had struck him too. "Your route," Delia said. Ajax's arms loosened. Hector took one step toward her. "We let ourselves be captured to find a way into the palace." Each word landed carefully, as though care could change what it meant. Delia looked at the blood on the floor, then at the man she had freed. "You used me. At first I intended to." The honesty hurt more than a lie. Delia opened her hand. The silver fox was gone. She had given it to Pell to protect the innocent. But the shape of it remained cut into her palm. She had opened the wire. She had also opened the kingdom. Delia woke with silk around her wrists and her father's blood beneath her fingernails. She pulled once against the bindings. The knot held. A strip of linen crossed her mouth. Another length of silk tied one ankle to the carved bedpost. Whoever had bound her had chosen softness without offering freedom. The door opened. Ajax entered alone. He had washed the blood from his hands. He had not managed to wash the guilt from his face. "Hello, sweetheart." Delia turned toward the wall. He closed the door and sat on the floor where she could see him without having to look directly at him. "The gag was not my order." She said nothing. The Alpha King believes a royal prisoner should not be allowed to shout instructions through a conquered palace. He is very traditional about these things. No answer. Ajax's attempt at humor died. Hector argued until his father threatened to remove him from the room by force. "I tied the knots because I knew how to do it without hurting you. That is the ugliest defense I have ever offered. But it is the truth." Delia looked at him then. Ajax rose and removed the gag. Her jaw ached when she spoke. "Did you let yourselves be sold?" "Yes. No excuse, no softening. We crossed the border with a false dispatch. We allowed Addis's patrol to take us. We needed to learn the guard rotations, the inner doors, and which walls could be opened from inside. Hector was poisoned. That was not part of the plan." "And the auction?" Ajax looked down. "We expected the cells. We did not expect your father to put us on a stage. You expected to use whoever bought you." "Yes. Would you have used me if I had chosen only Hector?" His silence lasted too long. "Yes," he said. "Until you knelt beside him. After that, I did not know what I was doing anymore." Delia pulled at the silk again. "Untie me. I cannot. I cannot without defying my king in a palace full of his soldiers. You defied a human king for Hector." Ajax flinched. "That is different, because Hector matters, because Hector is my family, and I am not." His expression changed. "You are the reason my family is alive. That was useful then. Do not do that. Do what? Turn what was good in you into proof that you were a fool." Delia's eyes burned. "My father is dead because I showed you the door. Your father is dead because kings spent 20 years choosing revenge over mercy. You did not swing the sword. I put it in the room." Ajax had no answer for that. The latch moved again. Hector entered with the Alpha King behind him. Hector's gaze went first to Delia's wrists, then to the red mark the gag had left across her cheek. His eyes flashed. "Ajax, I took it off." "The rest." The Alpha King's voice stopped him. "The rest remain." Hector turned. She is not dangerous. Her sister commands an army in her name. That makes her dangerous whether she wishes to be or not. Delia stared at him. Farana, the Alpha King, came to the foot of the bed. At dawn, she declared herself Queen of the South. Before noon, the southern provinces had raised her banner. Her vanguard has reached the river, less than half a day's march from the palace. Her riders say the wolves murdered King Ajax and abducted his true-born daughter. She cannot call herself queen. I am firstborn, which is why she demands your return. Delia felt the trap close around her. If she returned, Farana could place her beside the throne and call every order Delia's. If she stayed, Farana could call her prisoner. If she died, Farana could call her martyr. The Alpha King watched understanding reach her. Tell me about your sister. You have soldiers, ask them. Soldiers notice weapons. Family notices habits. Delia looked at Hector. Is this an interrogation? Yes, the Alpha King said. Hector answered at the same time. No. Father and son looked at each other. The space between them sharpened. Delia almost laughed. It came out as a broken breath. Farana hates silence, she said. She fills it with questions until you give her something she can use. She keeps a jeweled knife in her sleeve. She wears rose oil. She remembers every weakness anyone admits in front of her. Ajax leaned against the wall. She has no scent beneath the oil. The Alpha King turned to him. None? Nothing living. Hector noticed it too. Hector nodded. The Alpha King looked back at Delia. How old was she when she came here? 5. Your mother gave birth to her. No. My mother died when I was 3. Father adopted Farana after the Southern War. The Alpha King went still. He adopted her into the line of succession. He said she had lost everyone. He wanted her to have a family. A king may shelter an orphan. He does not make one equal to his heir without reason. Delia's anger rose. You did not know my father then. He was kind. I knew him before you were born. The words silenced her. The Alpha King crossed to the small portrait on the wall. Delia and Farana stood together in the garden, 12 and 14. Delia pale in blue, Farana taller in red, one hand resting on her sister's shoulder. He stared at Farana's painted face. The color left his own. I knew her mother. Hector moved closer. Who was she? The last queen of the Southern Snake clan. Delia shook her head. Farana is human. No, the Alpha King said. She is hiding. He pointed to the painted green eyes. Her mother's eyes were the same. So was the absence of scent. The royal line could fold itself so tightly into human skin that even wolves missed it unless we knew where to look. Ajax's face lost all humor. The clan with the influence gift. Yes. Delia heard the words but could not fit them around the sister who had slept beside her during storms. What gift? The Alpha King looked at her with something close to pity. They could lean on a mind, not command it, not make a gentle man murder in a single breath. They worked by drops. Fear made sharper, suspicion fed. Anger repeated until it sounded like the man's own voice. The glassy emptiness in Addis's eyes returned to her. The years of small changes. The way he had begun asking Farana what he thought before he answered anyone else. The way her sister touched his shoulder whenever he hesitated. Delia could not breathe. No. Your father rode beside me when we broke that clan's armies, the Alpha King said. We believed their queen dead and her line ended. A child survived. Addis took her into the one house best placed for revenge. He loved her. That may have made it easier. Delia looked at the place where the silver fox should have been pinned. Then he did not stop loving me. No one answered. She bent over her bound hands. The first sob tore through her before she could hide it. Her father had not vanished because she had failed to be worthy of him. He had been buried alive inside his own mind, and the man who killed him stood 3 steps away. Delia lifted her wet face to the Alpha King. You killed a sick man. His expression did not change, but his voice did. I killed a king whose seal sent thousands to chains and graves. I did not know what hollowed him. I know now. Both truths will follow me. That is not regret. Regret does not raise the dead. Neither does revenge. The Alpha King's gaze held hers. No, he said, it does not. He left the room without another word. Hector remained. Ajax looked between them and followed his king. closing the door behind him. For the first time since the attack, Delia and Hector were alone. He approached the bed. "Do not touch me." Hector stopped at once. The obedience hurt almost as much as the betrayal. "Did you know your father meant to kill mine?" "Yes." "Did you intend to stop him?" Hector's silence answered. Delia looked away. "I thought I could learn why Addis turned before judgment was passed. I thought there would be time." "There was time. You chose not to use it. I chose my people, and I chose you." His face tightened. "I know, that is why it hurts." Hector lowered himself to one knee beside the bed, keeping distance between them. "What happened in the passage began before I knew your name. What happened after the auction was not planned. Not the fever. Not you. You still took the door. Yes. You still brought an army through it. Yes. And you came back for me." His pale eyes lifted. "I would have crossed fire for you. You brought the fire." The words struck. Hector bowed his head. Yes. He did not ask forgiveness. That was the first mercy he had offered her since the sword fell. At dusk, they brought Delia to the throne room. Her father's banners had been removed. Wolves lined the walls in human and animal form. The carved throne remained empty, the Alpha King standing before it rather than sitting. Delia knelt at the foot of the dais, with her wrists bound in front of her. Hector stood at his father's right. Ajax stood one step below, jaw tight. The silver fox gleamed in the Alpha King's hand. "The maid called Pell reached the chapel," he said. "She gave this to one of my captains, and told him the princess had ordered him to protect the servants, or be stabbed with royal jewelry." A faint sound moved through the wolves, almost laughter. The Alpha King descended and placed the brooch in Delia's bound hands. "Your order was obeyed." Relief weakened her knees. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet." He returned to the dais. "Farana's army is camped at the river. She has made you her banner. If we release you, she places you on the throne and rules through your name. If we keep you, she calls us abductors. If you die, she gains a martyr but loses the living heir she needs to legitimize every command." Jack stepped forward. "No," the Alpha King did not look at him. "It is brutal. It may still be the cleanest move left to us." "Then give Delia to me," Ajax said. "Let me claim her before the pack. A claimed mate of the Beta line is not a prisoner. She becomes wolf-protected under sacred law." Delia stared at him. Ajax met her gaze. He was offering his future as a shield. The Alpha King shook his head. "You love too easily. Fondness is not fate. I will not let you bind your life to a wish because you cannot bear one necessary death." Ajax's hands curled. "Necessary to whom?" "Enough," Hector said. He came down the steps. The room fell quiet. Hector stopped before Delia and knelt. He reached for the knot at her wrists, then looked to his father. "She will not kneel bound while we discuss ownership of her life." The Alpha King's face hardened. "Do not test me before the pack, then do not make me." For a long moment, neither moved. The Alpha King gave one sharp nod. Hector untied Delia. He did not take her hands after the silk fell away. "Father, killing her is not the strongest move. She is Addis's true heir. Farana adopted his name and poisoned his mind, but Delia carries the lawful crown. Farana will call her a wolf puppet, then make the alliance something she cannot dismiss." The Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "A claim?" Hector looked at Delia, the open place in her chest flooded with fear. "There is a bond," he said. "I felt it on the auction floor. I denied it because she was Addis's daughter, and I was afraid desire had made me weak. Then I felt her terror across the palace. There is no mistake now." Murmurs moved along the walls. The Alpha King's gaze went to Delia. "Do you feel him?" "Yes. A fated bond would place you under pack protection and give our alliance sacred force. Farana could call you many things. She could not call the bond false." Delia looked at Hector. "Would you claim me if your father were not considering my execution?" His answer came without pause. "I would have claimed you in the orchard if I had not been a coward. Would you still claim me if I never forgive what happened here?" Pain moved through him. "Yes. Would you let me say no?" Hector's eyes did not leave hers. "Fated does not mean owned. If you say no, I stand between you and every blade in this room anyway." The Alpha King drew breath. Hector rose and turned toward him. If she dies, I leave the crown. I leave the pack if I must. You will not build our future on her body." Ajax stepped beside him. "Nor mine." The Alpha King looked at the two men he trusted most, then at Delia. "Your answer, Princess." Delia closed her hand around the silver fox. She could choose safety and still refuse Hector. She could choose Hector and still condemn what he had done. Love did not erase judgment. A bond did not erase choice. She stepped toward him. "I will have you," she said, "but you will spend a long time earning what fate handed you." Hector's breath broke. "Every day I have." He touched her face only after she leaned into his palm. The bond opened, his grief, fear, devotion, and relief moved through her in one fierce wave. Beneath it lay something older than the auction and quieter than desire. Recognition. Delia placed her hand over his heart. "I claim you too." The wolves bowed their heads. The Alpha King closed his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, the sentence had left his face. "Then Delia of Addis is no prisoner. She stands under the protection of my house and beside my heir as the lawful queen of the South." A horn sounded outside. A scout ran through the doors and dropped to one knee. "Sire, the Southern army has halted at the river. Their queen's tent is empty." The Alpha King looked toward the dark windows. "How long has she been missing?" "Since sunset." Delia felt the silver fox turn cold in her hand. Farana was not with her army. She was already inside the wolves' lines. Delia woke because the silver fox was no longer at her throat. Farana sat on the edge of the cot, turning the brooch between two fingers. Hector lay beside Delia without moving. For one terrible heartbeat, his chest did not rise. Delia reached for him. Farana caught her wrist. "He is asleep." "What did you do?" "Nothing permanent." "The Golden One is sleeping outside as well." He was harder to pass than the sentries and prettier when annoyed. Delia pulled free and pressed her hand to Hector's throat. A pulse answered, slow but steady. The bond between them felt muffled, not gone. Sweet smoke hung in the tent. "You poisoned them." "I borrowed an hour." Farana set the silver fox in Delia's palm. She looked exhausted. Her black hair had come loose beneath her hood. There was no jeweled knife in sight, which meant it was closer than ever. "Come home," she said. "There is no home left. There is a kingdom, your kingdom. I raised the South for you. You named yourself queen. Someone had to give the frightened men a voice they would obey. You mean a mind they would obey." Farana's face changed. "They told you. The Alpha King knew your mother." For the first time in Delia's life, her sister looked young. "He killed her. He says she died in the war. Men who win wars always call burning children a battle." Farana stood and crossed to the tent opening. Beyond the canvas, the wolf camp slept under a thin moon. "I was 5 when Addis found me after the southern keep burned. He took me home. He gave me clean clothes. He sat beside my bed until I slept." Her voice tightened. "Then I learned he had ridden with the wolves who destroyed us." Delia looked at Hector. "So you destroyed him," Farana turned. "I meant to make him afraid of them. That was all. A fear here, a suspicion there, enough that he would never open his gates to wolves again. 7,000 people were enslaved. I did not order every chain. You put the thought in the hand that signed them." Farana flinched. At first he resisted. He would wake from it and ask why he had shouted. He would find me crying and apologize to me. Her eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. Then it became easier. "For him, for me. Revenge is a door that grows lighter every time you open it." Delia thought of the hidden wall, the orchard, the army pouring through. "Did you love him?" Farana's composure broke. "Yes, one word, no defense. That is the worst of it," she whispered. "I loved the man I was hollowing." Silence filled the tent. Hector breathed beside Delia. Unaware, Farana looked at him. "The wolves killed father. Your influence killed him slowly. Their sword ended it. And you sleep beside the son of the man who swung it. I do not forgive his father. But you forgive Hector." Farana studied her. "You love him." Delia placed one hand over Hector's. Yes, the answer did not excuse anything. That was why it was true. Farana glanced toward the entrance. "And Ajax? He is family. You collect dangerous things. So did father. He brought you home." Farana closed her eyes. Delia rose from the cot. Call off the army. I cannot return to them with nothing. Then do not return with nothing. Return with terms. Farana laughed without humor. Terms from the wolves who burned my people. Terms from me, the queen whose name you used to raise them. The words landed between them. Farana's green eyes sharpened. You would take the crown. I will take responsibility for it. That is not the same thing. And what do I receive? A cell? A clean sword? A trial? A voice for the survivors of your clan, the truth about what happened in the south. No crown, no influence over another mind. Farana's mouth curved. You have learned to threaten beautifully. I learned from you. Delia stepped closer. Meet us at the orchard at dawn. Bring no army within bow range. Release every lord you have leaned upon before you speak. And if I refuse, then the wolves will fight you, and I will stand with them, not because they are innocent, because you are choosing another generation of graves. Farana looked past her at Hector. He would burn the world for you. Then I must be the one who tells him where to stop. A long moment passed. Farana reached up and straightened the silver fox at Delia's throat, the same way she had adjusted ribbons when they were girls. For you, she said. Dawn. She moved toward the entrance. Farana, her sister, stopped. If this is another trick, you will hate me? Delia's eyes burned. I already love you and hate what you did. Do not make me learn which survives. Farana left without answering. Hector woke with a snarl. He came off the cot in one motion, half-shifted, claws dark at his fingertips. His gaze found the open tent, then Delia. Where is she? Gone. Did she touch you? She touched my brooch. His eyes went to the silver fox. I will kill her! Ajax stumbled through the entrance, golden hair standing in every direction. Stand in line. She drugged me with a flower. I have survived blades with more dignity. Hector moved toward the door. Delia stepped into his path. She agreed to a parley. She entered our camp and put you beside two unconscious guards. You entered my palace and put me beside my father's body. Hector stopped. Ajax looked away. Delia's voice shook, but she held it steady. We can count betrayals until both armies arrive, or we can stop the next one. The bond carried Hector's fury into her. It met her grief and changed shape. He looked at the red mark on her wrist where Farana had caught her. Dawn, he said. But she does not come within reach of you alone, agreed. And if she leans on your mind, you trust me to know my own thoughts. His jaw worked. I am learning. The old orchard stood between two armies. Wolf banners waited north of the trees. Southern standards lined the far ridge. Frost covered the ground where Delia had said goodbye less than 2 days before. She walked into the open with Hector at her right and Ajax at her left. The Alpha King followed with 6 captains. Farana waited beneath the oldest apple tree. She had brought 6 southern lords and no visible guard. Her jeweled knife rested openly at her belt. The lords looked at her with the fixed attention of men listening to a voice no one else could hear. Delia stopped 10 paces away. Release them. Farana's eyebrows lifted. No greeting? Release them. The air changed. It was not a sound or scent. It was pressure, faint as a hand laid against the back of the mind. The southern lords blinked. One staggered. Another looked at Farana as if waking beside a stranger. 2 stepped away from her at once. 4 remained. Farana looked almost relieved. There, now you know which men came because I called and which came because they chose. A gray-haired lord faced Delia. My queen, wolves took my sons in the border raids. No serpent whispered that grief into me. The Alpha King answered before Delia could. Human riders burned 3 wolf villages the same winter. Grief has never lacked an army. Farana's gaze found him. You remember burned villages when they are yours. The wolves behind him growled. Hector took 1 step forward. Delia caught his hand. No, he stopped. Farana noticed. You truly can command him. No, Hector said. I choose to hear her. Learn the difference. Farana's smile vanished. The Alpha King came into the open. By the time we reached the southern keep, we had convinced ourselves that ending your mother's line was the only way to end the war. So your soldiers burned it with children inside. Yes. The admission cut through the orchard. Farana had prepared herself for denial. Delia saw it in the way her fingers left the knife. The Alpha King's voice remained hard. We told ourselves ending the royal line would end the gift. We killed people who had not raised weapons. I carry those names whether I know them or not. And Attis? Farana asked. I killed him before I understood what you had done. Would understanding have stayed your hand? The Alpha King looked at Delia. I do not know. It was not absolution. It was the first honest ground any of them had stood on. Delia stepped between the two rulers. These are my terms. Both armies seemed to lean toward her. Every slave held under Attis's law is freed. Every shifter collar is destroyed. The market's close today. One southern lord began to protest. Delia cut him off. A crown that depends on cages deserves to fall with them. Ajax's mouth curved. Second, Delia continued, the wolf army withdraws from every town that opens its cells and lowers its weapons. Any captain who attacks civilians answers before a joint court. That includes Vakran. The Alpha King's expression hardened. You bargain with my soldiers. I bargain for the people whose queen you say I am. Hector looked at his father. She is right. The Alpha King gave no sign of agreement, but he did not refuse. Third, the Southern Massacre is entered into the royal record. The dead of the snake clans are named beside the wolves taken under Attis. Land seized after the war is returned to survivors where proof remains. Farana stared at her. You would do that? Justice is not a favor I do for my sister. Delia's voice softened. Fourth, you surrender the crown and submit to judgment for what you did to father. You speak for your surviving people at that judgment. You do not enter another mind. Farana's hand settled on the jeweled knife. Hector shifted closer to Delia. Ajax's eyes flashed gold. The pressure returned. This time it came stronger. Fear sharpened around the orchard. Wolf hands moved toward weapons. Southern soldiers on the ridge lowered spears. Delia felt Farana's influence, searching for anger it could use. The bond between Delia and Hector flared. His rage rushed toward her. She held it. Farana. Her sister's green eyes were bright with tears. They will put me in chains. I will not. They will kill me. I will stand between you and any sentence made for revenge. I will not stand between you and consequence. Farana's power pressed harder. Delia stepped closer despite Hector's grip on her hand. You told me to pick one because you thought cruelty would make me safe. Father taught us mercy before you taught him fear. Choose which lesson survives him. Farana's face folded, the pressure vanished. All across the orchard, men released breaths they had not known they were holding. Farana drew the jeweled knife. Hector moved. Delia did not. Her sister turned the blade and offered it hilt first. I surrender the crown, Farana said. Not my people. Delia took the knife, then stand for them without standing on anyone's mind. Farana looked at the Alpha King. And you submit your captains to the same court? He looked toward the wolf banners, then at Hector. Yes. The gray-haired southern lord lowered his sword. One by one, weapons touched the frost. The sound traveled from the orchard to both ridges. Not peace. The first choice that made peace possible. 3 weeks later, Delia was crowned in the old auction hall. She had refused the throne room. The wooden block had been torn apart. The iron rings were gone from the floor. Sunlight entered through doors that had once remained closed during every sale. Former prisoners stood beside nobles. Wolf captains stood beside human guards. Pell occupied a place in the front row and wore a new blue dress with a kitchen knife hidden badly beneath it. Farana stood under guard near the eastern pillar. She wore no crown and no rose oil. For the first time, Ajax said, she smelled like rain on stone. Farana's judgment had not been decided, nor had the joint court finished naming the crimes of the Alpha King's captains, or of the king who had commanded them. Delia had refused to begin her reign by pretending one morning in an orchard had repaired 20 years. When the crown was placed in her hands, she set it on the empty chair beside her. Before I wear this, she said, the chains end. She signed the decree on the auction master's old table. Every slave in the South was free. Every collar became illegal. Every market closed before sunset. Only then did Delia lift the crown. Hector stood beside her in black, the scar at his side pulling faintly when he breathed. He had offered to kneel. She had told him never again. Ajax waited behind them. Gold hair tied with a blue ribbon Pell claimed she had not given him. After the hall emptied, he found Delia near the dismantled block. "So," he said, "you chose the brooding one." Delia smiled. "I chose both at the auction, you heard me. The court may misunderstand if you say that too loudly." She took his hand. "Hector is my mate. You are my family. Neither is a lesser bond." For once, Ajax had no quick answer. He looked down at their joined hands. "Some bonds find us," he said. "Some we build because the world would be worse without them." Pell called from the doorway, "You still owe me a second song." Ajax's grin returned. "I was hoping you had forgotten. I keep accounts." A terrifying quality in a woman. He kissed Delia's knuckles and went after her. Farana passed him on her way out under escort. She stopped beside Delia. "You look like father did before the crown became too heavy." Delia touched the silver fox at her throat. "Then I will ask someone to help me carry it." Farana looked at Hector. "He will, so will you if you choose to, after judgment, after truth." Her sister's eyes filled. "You do not forgive me." "No." Farana nodded. It was the answer she deserved, and Delia loved her enough to give it. Months later, Frost returned to the old orchard. Delia walked beneath the apple trees with Hector, their hands joined inside the pocket of his cloak. The kingdom had not healed. Courts argued. Former masters resisted. Wolf families searched lists for names that might never be found. Peace was work, not a bell that rang once. A thin cry came from the brambles. Hector stopped. A young fox struggled beneath a fallen branch, one hind leg caught in a wire snare. Delia knelt. The animal snapped at her, terrified. "Careful," Hector said. "It has reason to bite." He held the branch while she worked the wire loose. The silver fox brooch slipped free of her cloak and swung above the living animal. For a moment, metal fox and frightened fox faced each other. Delia remembered her father's hands opening a trap. She remembered Farana's hand closing around a mind. She remembered two wolves kneeling beneath an auction hammer, while a kingdom told her mercy meant choosing who deserved to die. The last loop came free. The fox remained still, uncertain of the open ground. Hector looked at Delia. "What now, my queen?" She set the broken wire aside. "Now it chooses." The fox rose, tested its leg, and ran into the trees. Delia watched until the branches swallowed it. This time, no one asked her to pick which life was worth saving. This time, the only choice was whether to open the wire. She already had.